who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kennedy.
Here.
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Leary.
Here.
Counsel Mercia. Counsel Milonazo.
Here.
Counsel Rourke. Counsel Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Belanger.
Here.
Counsel Elliott. That's 9 present.
Council Mercia.
I'd like to offer a moment of silence and darkened chamber for Edward F. Bud Slattery Jr., beloved husband of Sarah Sally Slattery, who survives him, with whom he celebrated their 57th wedding anniversary on February 28th of this year. Born in Lowell, he attended Lowell schools and was a graduate of Lowell High School, class of '54. Following graduation, Bud attended Providence College on a baseball scholarship, and after completing an exceptional college career, he signed a professional baseball contract with the San Francisco Giants. Mr. Slattery served as Director of Athletics at the Greater Lowell Vogue from 1974 until his retirement in 1982. He was one of the founding fathers of Greater Lowell's highly regarded athletic program. In addition, he was one of the driving forces in the formation of the Commonwealth Athletic Conference, which was formed to meet the needs of vocational high school athletic programs in Eastern Mass, and a conference in which the Griffins continue to compete to this day. Previously, he taught English, served as coach, and was head of the English department. He was a member of the Mount Pleasant Golf Club in Lowell. In addition to his wife, Sally, Bud is survived by a daughter, Kelly, 5 sons, Edward Ted Slattery III, Paul, Kevin, James, and David, and 12 grandchildren. We offer our condolences to the family. He will be truly missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any others? Okay. Next, under the city clerk, we have the minutes of the city council meeting of April 11th for acceptance. We have a motion to approve, accept, and place on file by Council Mercy, second by Council Rourke. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, under communications from the city manager, we have motion responses A through M, and will be A through N, actually. And so we'll begin with A, parking regulations near Mount Vernon and Bonnie Streets. Any discussion? Now we'll move on to B, parking solution at 11th and Beacon Streets. Any discussion? Not, we'll move on to C, the speed limit at East Merrimack Street. Any discussion? Move on to D, June Street paving. Council Leahy.
Question on Merrimack Street, on East Merrimack Street. Yeah. So is, through you, the mayor to the manager, is Nick here or anybody? Okay. So in the report, so will the street go down to 25 miles an hour and be posted, or what do we think we're gonna do over there?
Yes, sir. So under the Municipal Modernization Act, the legislature has passed new laws that allow the city council to vote to lower the speed limits on certain streets. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk with the law department, figure out exactly what the city council needs to vote on, and then we're going to bring it back to the city council for vote. And then if you vote for it, we can then lower the speed limit to 25 miles per hour.
All right, and how would you go about posting that, like so people get the message? Are there regulations, like you put a sign every so many feet, or
No,
I don't know how long that road is. What's that, a quarter of a mile, maybe? Half a mile?
Yeah, so we'd probably put one coming into, across from Nesmith Street. So as you're coming into that neighborhood, we'd put a sign there headed east. And then when you're coming from Andover Street, we'd put another sign there as you're headed west.
Okay.
So just two signs at either side, and
Okay, nothing in the middle. There's a sign, there is a speed limit sign down by whatever the ramp is that goes down to the river by Barrisford Ave. And there's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign there. But, so we don't really put them in the middle?
no, typically we try to be, just at the beginning and the end, so when people enter that zone, they realize that it's a new speed limit.
Okay, all right. Well, when it comes back, we can talk about that too, but, so this will go to law department and then come back to us.
Yeah, we'll figure out exactly the process by which the city council needs to vote on it, and we'll bring it in front of you.
All right, is that kind of what so is it the city of Somerville? They lowered their speed limit throughout the city to 25, right?
So you can lower this, so statutorily, the speed limits on all our streets, because they are thickly settled, statutorily they're 30 miles per hour. With the new law, the city council can change the speed limits of all the streets to 25 miles per hour that are thickly settled and are within city jurisdiction, or you can do one by one. So there's, so I think if we maybe do this one first, figure out exactly what we're doing, and then if you want to do more streets later, we can go from there.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Council Mercia.
Thank you. I'm afraid of this thing. It's crazy. Many years ago, people on Concord Street said, could you put the speed limit sign up on our street? People are going so fast. And then when I realized it was 30 miles an hour, I thought it was better to leave it a secret so people would go 15 miles an hour. So I'm thinking even 25 miles an hour is fast. Try doing 25 miles an hour up Concord Street and tell me that makes sense to you. So I'm thinking, could you even go 15? Or you couldn't lower it to 10 or 15?
No, I'm sorry. The law only allows you to go from 30 to 25. At school, school zones are different, or safety zones are different, but legally we can only do it because otherwise you'd be driving through the state, and every street, some would be 7 miles per hour and 15 and 20.
They should be 7 miles an hour, except my street because it's so wide, but be that as it may, I don't know. So
25 is what we can do.
That's fast.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Any further discussion on item C? If not, move on to item D, June Street paving. Council Leary.
Just first, thank you for the report. I guess the question, the report says basically it's a driveway, not a right-of-way. So obviously Chapter 90 funds don't come in, but there's still an issue when people use it. So the way the report finished ultimately came out to be there's not a funding source. So I guess the question really is, what's the remedy if it's not Chapter 90? Is there another funding source or something we can do to take care of it, basically?
Yeah, we're going to look toward the capital plan. There are several streets here on the agenda this evening that don't qualify, like the next one, Swan Street, doesn't qualify for Chapter 90, but we'll certainly look in a capital budget in the future, try and fund the streets that don't qualify for Chapter 90.
Okay, and this would be one of those areas that would, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Council Leahy.
So, related, through you to the manager, related to this issue, there's plenty, like you said, there's plenty of little streets that don't qualify, like off of Rogers Street when you go in between the McDonald's and the Chevrolet place that goes into the Hannaford, like that street's always a mess. do we ask businesses who routine, like you have, CTI in the back and you have the Chevrolet place and you have the Hannaford, do they contribute to smaller roads, entranceways like that? Are there any laws or anything that says this is mainly, even though it's a road, it's really your entranceway into your businesses? So is there any way that they contribute to the?
We can reach out to them and the abutters and see if they're interested in helping to fund the improvements, but we haven't
Yeah.
gotten many donations since I've been
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. All right, I mean, but like
can
you
reach out
said,
to them.
that's a
It's a good
tricky
idea.
situation. There's 100 of them across the city that we should be looking.
Especially that one, there's, like you say, the Chevrolet and the McDonald's should be interested in having a smooth
Well,
street.
even the CTI, I mean, you have all the buses going in
Yep.
the back, so.
Let's reach out to them and
Okay.
see if they'll help.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? If not, we'll move on to Swan Street paving. Any discussion on Swan Street paving? If not, we'll move on to item F, which is an update of the disposition of the Susie parcel. Council Samaras.
Thank you. I want to thank the manager for this report. Mr. Manager, but could you explain, there's an RFP going out, but primarily it's for housing in this area. But the thing is, there is a change in this, so could you explain that?
Yeah, some time ago, there was the acre revitalization plan that was approved by the state. And it was originally envisioned that there would be housing in this area. But the more the time has gone on, especially if you just have to drive over to that street to realize that it's really more attuned to commercial ventures right now than housing. So we're going to put out the RFQ. We've already had several people express interest in it, not for housing, but for a commercial venture. And I've talked to Diane Tradd, and I think she would agree we could petition the state to change the plan to make it a commercial venture, and I don't think we'd have much of a problem doing that.
No, thank you for that clarification. Terrific.
Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, I want to commend your administration and planning and development on this parcel. Now, the Susie site has been abandoned now for a number of years, and I am very excited to see that it's going to go out to the private sector real soon. I know there's been many interested parties, a lot that have to do with job creation in that neighborhood. That is a very high unemployment rate. So I am anxious to see all the bids that come in. So please keep us in tune as to what goes on there when this goes out to bids and who those who are willing to make an investment there. So we're going to help them any way we can. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to item G, the condition of Willard Street. Any discussion on item G? If not, we'll move on to H, the funding of the Kerouac Festival. Any discussion? Councilor Leahy.
Back to G.
Okay.
Thank you. Through you, the manager. So with the report, could you just, it looks like we're gonna fix it, but it kind of looks like we're just gonna fix it. We're not gonna really repair the road. I mean, I thought we,
Deplorable is the only way to describe the state
Yeah,
of the road.
yeah.
And we're going to fix that depression right now, but we're going to be looking for plans to just repave the whole street because it needs to be done.
all right, because most of the street isn't all that bad. You know, I suppose at the top, we should do something with the islands, but that's like a discussion for another day. But that section will be done 100%, and then, Okay.
We're looking to try and fund the entire street.
okay. All right, thank you.
Any further discussion on Willard Street? If not, we'll move on to H, funding of the Kerouac Festival. Any discussion? Council Belanger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Mayor, this is your motion that is, which I think was a very good one, and the response is very good as well. So through you to the manager, Mr. Manager, I want to highly, highly commend you for raising the K special event budget in FY18 to $80,000 to allow nonprofits and cultural events handle some of the expenses that are associated with special events, such as police and fire detail, which are very costly but necessary, and this helps them alleviate those costs. So that is great. That is something that this council's been advocating for some time, and you found the money, and we greatly appreciate it. And we have an example that just last Saturday night in the Acre section of Lowell, where we had this lantern festival. There was lanterns in the canals, hundreds of them, that literally lit up the canal. There was about 1,000 people there in the acre. It was a diverse cultural event that myself, many of my colleagues were there. It was just spectacular to see. And this is what special events do, Mr. Manager. They bring our city and our community and our neighborhoods together. Now, we love the downtown, there's no doubt, but we want to spread special events throughout the city, in every corner, in every neighborhood as best we can. This was just tremendous to see this event. I want to commend all the organizers that put that event together last Saturday night. But, Mr. Manager, I want City of Lowell to be nicknamed Festival City USA, okay? Because I know I've been involved with special events for a long time. I know the importance of them in the community and the economic benefits of them. They're very important to our city and our residents. So thank you for finding the funds to achieve this and allow more of it to continue. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Council. Festival City USA might catch on.
Thank you,
Sounds
Mr.
pretty
Mayor.
good. Any further discussion on the Kerouac Festival? If not, we'll move on to possible use of iPads. Discussion? If not, we'll move on to item J, the Hamilton Innovation District EDA sign and infrastructure. Council Leary.
Just really quick, first, thank you for the quick report. It's good to see that the big package went out this Friday, I guess, ultimately. And ultimately, I guess by the 15th of May, mid-May, we should be advertising. And then hopefully by mid-June, we'll actually have responses. The only thing I want to follow up with is like the third paragraph goes into what the EDA law department will be looked at as far as a remedy. Do we have any action plan in terms of what you feel that would be or where we're going to be and what time frame? What it says basically, it says EDA staff notified the city that it may become concerned if a new developer for parcels on the north side was not found after several months. I mean, if you kind of respond to that, but I think that's, other than that, it looks, we're going to, as far as the infrastructure for the Innovation District, which is so paramount to having any development, is actually right on track. Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
Yes, Congresswoman Tsongas's office has been tremendously helpful in this matter. We've sent letters to EDA, and she has contacted EDA. And they said as long as we're pursuing efforts to solicit a new master developer for the Hamilton Canal, we'll be just fine. And we should be having that RFQ going out within a week. We'll send that RFQ down to the EDA, and I'm sure that they'll work with us to make sure that the signature bridge comes to fruition.
Good, thank you very much. I think then the important part too is the revised version of it is actually high-speed internet, which I think due to your efforts and your folks is very, it's essential to making anything work there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to the Lawrence Street Bridge. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Just quickly on that one, through you to the manager. So I'm glad to see that it should be starting any time now, and then the barriers will be up. And they're projecting just about a year to get that substantially done.
Yes, I wish they were doing the Broadway Bridge,
I know,
because
huh?
they're
Somebody else has a
targeting
motion
December
about that.
of 2017 to be
Yeah.
completed, so maybe we'll move them over to Broadway after that.
All right, and I see they are gonna fix the safety railing on the upstream. It looked like the Riley School built it the first
I
time.
don't know what direction upstream and downstream is, but they're gonna fix it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to the procedures and eminent domain cases. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city solicitor, Christine, the last sentence, in the event that an award is made with eminent domain taken which exceeds the initial amount paid by the city, the former property owner is entitled to pre- and post-judgment interest. What does that mean?
There would be interest on the award from the time of the taking up to the judgment, and then from the final judgment forward.
And that could take how long?
To work its way through the court,
Right,
it could take a year or two.
a year or two, and the city would be held responsible to pay the interest?
Yes, and that's assuming the sort of worst-case scenario in that, A, we weren't able to otherwise come to a resolution, and B, that,
So in other words, if we wanted to do eminent domain taking of the doctor's property and they fought it in court and it went to court and it took, let's say, a year or two, we would be held responsible to pay the interest fee, the city would be?
if there were a judgment entered against the city, correct?
Thank you.
Council Samaras.
Thank you. Thank you for the report, Mr. Manager. There are so many different opinions given regarding a procedure that's a court procedure. But could I ask the city solicitor to give an overview of what the eminent domain process is? But if you look at this, you know, if there's a governmental need for a piece of property, what's the process? Using recent history also, could you talk about, are we always in litigation if we do this? And also, could a project be stopped that the city would to take on seeking a piece of property through eminent domain?
Sure. So with respect to whether the city could be stopped, if the council were to initiate eminent domain takings, and assuming that we followed all of the steps as we have in the past, then the taking would be perfected. And what would remain would be, in the event that we were unable to settle with the property owner, that matter would be subject to further litigation. As far as what we have done in the past, we have been involved, as many of you would recall, in many eminent domain cases in recent years through both the Acre Urban Revitalization Plan as well as the JAM Hamilton Canal Plan, and then other various projects, the bridge project for the Howe Bridge. And in the vast majority of those cases, we have always been able to come to a resolution, a reasonable resolution with the property owner, so that very few of these have actually proceeded to court.
Okay, so basically though, I mean, if government, meaning the city of Lowell, needs a piece of property, and it's because of a reason such as a school, police station, or whatever, something that's important to the needs of the city, that would be able to be processed through the courts and not, we'll say, be a problem to the building of that project or what have you.
Correct. It's not to say that somebody couldn't challenge the reason
Yes.
for the taking, and that has happened in the past, but it's, again, that's been very rare. In the case of, say, a school, whether a construction or an expansion of the school, that's already been deemed to be a legitimate governmental interest, and that, pursuant to case law, really wouldn't be subject to debate.
Okay, I just wanted to ensure that everybody understood what the process of eminent domain really is, and that it's not always this court action, because it also allows for time to work with the people, or if you were looking to take over a particular piece of land, to negotiate and perhaps not go to court.
That's correct, and in fact, the DPD has always carried the sort of laboring oar of these negotiations with assistance from the law department, and historically have been very successful in working out a resolution for the affected property owner.
Okay, if you were to take a piece of property over, okay, and there was some agreement to allow this to happen, you settled on the price. What are some of the things that are included? Is it just the price of the building, or is it movement, or is it, do we use our people to find locations for them? Do we participate in that type of a process?
Really,
Or is that a negotiated type of thing?
well, what wouldn't be negotiated, they would be entitled to reasonable moving expenses. We have on occasion worked with property owners to, in fact, in many instances, to find a suitable replacement property for their residential or business need. Most of the time, there have been businesses that have been displaced.
Okay, thank you.
Council Milonazo.
Thank you. The solicitor did a very good job in answering Council Samaras' questions, and I just want to say that in my almost 40 years, either as an elected official or an appointed official here in the city, I think I can only count on one finger, really, what was the problem with an eminent domain taking, and it had to do with the Curran and Morton warehouse on Bridge Street. And that had nothing to do with, in my opinion, the project, because we were developing the Kerouac Park, but it was really almost negligence on the way we, as the city, approached it that ended up in court. And unfortunately, we ended up losing that case. But that, of all the eminent domain, cases that I've been involved in and others have been involved in, as you mentioned, Madam Solicitor, they were all dealt with professionally. There were resolutions that came about, and we were able to move projects like the Howe Bridge, like the Edward Early Garage on Middlesex Street, and other projects that really did benefit the city. So again, it's a tool that the city certainly does have available to it. Like I said, in my almost 40 years, there was only one time where we lost in court.
Thank you, Council. Any further discussion? Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if, Mr. Mayor, through you to the solicitor, now how about the Lechulis property in the jam plan? Didn't the city take that roughly 10 years ago? That was an eminent domain taking, and that was not the smoothest from what I recall, 'cause I had a business in the neighborhood at the time. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. I concur, I guess, it was a case that I had, and it wasn't the smoothest in the sense that it involved a significant amount of litigation. However, we were largely successful. The issue in the Lechulis case was that the city had taken a water wheel that had been used for the generation of electricity. And as Councilor Samaras had asked earlier about the legitimate reasons for a taking, and I noted that it's very rare that that is successfully challenged. The issue there was simply that whether the city had standing to take a power wheel, and there was a challenge involving FERC and other issues. It was subject to a motion to dismiss in the federal court, where the city prevailed. It was appealed to the First Circuit, where we prevailed again, and then they refiled in the land court. It was heard, and we prevailed again. In the end, the damages claimed were quite significant. I think it was something in the neighborhood of $15 million, maybe even 19, and we settled for around something a little bit north of $1 million. So in the end, it was a successful, but that was rare. The number of instances where we were involved in takings are significant in more recent years. And the case that Councilor Milanazzo cited too, I don't recall exactly when that was, but that had to have been perhaps 20, 30, no. Many,
Back in the
few years
manager's
ago.
time, huh?
before.
Was it, Madam Solicitor?
Okay, well, thank you. So a somewhat positive outcome. It still cost us, it was a long, ongoing battle, and, we had to pay a little more in the end, but fairly successful. I would concur with you. But with that being said, my question is to you, in an eminent domain taking in a building where there's multiple businesses, now, what if a location cannot be found that isn't suitable, Madam Solicitor? Do you have to, and not only reimburse the property owner for the real estate, but you have to buy the businesses out? How does that work if they say, no, we're not going there, that's not suitable? I'm just thinking out loud now. Hypothetically, again, when there's multiple different entities in one building. Now, how would that work?
Speaking hypothetically, if a suitable replacement property wasn't achieved, it wouldn't have an impact on the validity of the taking. It's something that we have tried to do, to work with people, and it's something that I think we would always try to do. But whether the parties are successful in coming together for a suitable replacement property wouldn't ultimately affect the validity of the taking. The taking would still go forward.
Okay.
And then they would have their damage claim.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, that's a lot of insight. Thank you, Madam Solicitor, for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on this one? Councilor Elliott.
Just a quick question. How difficult would it be to you, Mr. Manager, the solicitor, to sort of recap the number of eminent domain cases that the city has pursued in the last 10 years? Is that readily? And I guess my question would also be, what was the property assessment or valuation at the time, and what did the city ultimately settle on or with the property owners? Is that something that we could get?
The law department could work with the DPD, and we could put together a list with that information in it.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to a report on the annual lien auction. Any discussion? Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very impressed with the assessor's office. They currently assess 6 properties that they had a lien on, tax delinquents. When you say tax delinquents, we talk about blighted properties in neighborhoods that are trying to make a difference and spruce up their neighborhood, and yet we get delinquent properties. So in reading what we have here before us, we're taking the blight out of neighborhoods one building at a time. There are 6, approximately 6, which could generate $1.2 million. That in itself is good, but the assessor's office went through approximately 105 accounts that were settled, and close to $900,000 have been collected. I think that's a remarkable feat right there. So not only are we trying to clean up neighborhoods, we're trying to put more money into the tax coffers. So this is a good, I think we had to talk about that. That's a good thing. Thank you. Could we get a list of the addresses for the 6 properties that we're talking about here? I'd just be curious to know where they are. Thank you.
Any further discussion on item M, the municipal lien auction? If not, we'll move on. There's one more that's informational. The Market Cabot Merrimack Street project. Any discussion on that? Council Belanger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager, this Jeanne d'Arc parcel on Merrimack Street is a very important parcel to the Acre neighborhood. It has grown. They've since acquired other adjacent properties. It's now grown. It's a fairly large swath parcel in that neighborhood. Now, is this development look like, are they feeling things out now? Do they, to your knowledge, do they intend on going in front of the land use boards to go forward with this project?
That's a very timely question, because this was really a hypothetical. This was just based upon...
That's what I'm thinking, yes.
There was, information we had that they wanted to construct a 6-story building, but we don't have final plans. But it just happens that they called my office today to schedule a meeting to meet with me to go over what their plans are for the property. So I'll probably have a better idea for a report to the council in a couple of weeks exactly what their plans are. But this is purely a hypothetical if they built the most they could under the circumstances.
That is highest and best use for what the property can offer,
But
yes.
we'll have a better idea after I meet with them and they tell me their plans for the property.
Right, because that would have challenges, and one that specifically stands out is parking.
Oh,
That
parking
would
is
call.
gonna be a major
It's in an urban mixed-use zone, that would call for over 200 parking spots, and with no municipal garage within the required footage to the parcel, that would be a serious challenge. So please, keep this council in tune to what is going on with that. It's very, very important. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Council. Council Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager. So speaking of the parking, when they submit any of these plans, have they indicated anything about the parking, a garage or anything?
I met with them probably 2 months ago, and it was just a concept about what they wanted to do. And of course, I want them, I asked them to do some commercial. I thought that was, this one, we saw that with the Lowell House project tonight, is they're gonna have commercial on the first floor, which I think is very advantageous. I've asked these people to put commercial on the first floor also. But they haven't given any definitive plans. They were just talking generalities, but I think they're ready now to give some plans, and I'll have a better idea after I meet with them, probably next week, Mrs. Moynihan. Yeah. So I'll have a better idea then.
Yeah, I agree. We have to hold their feet to the fire that there's plenty of land over there. Too bad if it costs them more money to buy another parcel of land to erect a garage. There's plenty of projects like this throughout the state that people build a garage with it. So, they can't expect to just come in and overburden the neighborhood with parking. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on this? If not, the chair, Council Belanger.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. One brief comment, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, the working cities, we're really putting a large focus on the Acre. If you could please extend the sort of the vision of your administration. You know, for job creation in that area, it's got a very high employment rate, and, you know, transportation to employment, all those things that we envision going forward down there, that's sort of, hopefully they're part of their vision as well. Housing, I'm not adamantly opposed to, I'm not saying no. I mean, it's a big parcel, there's probably going to be some housing there, and that's fine. But we also are looking to create some jobs down that neighborhood for those residents who have barriers getting to employment. It's a large part of the reasoning down there, why the unemployment rate is so high. So if you could share that with them, our vision, Mr. Manager, I think that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. The Chair will entertain a motion to accept the communication from the manager for motion responses and place them on file by Counselor Rourke, seconded by Counselor Milonazo. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. Next, under communications, is the reappointment of James F. O'Donnell to the Lowell Memorial Auditorium Board of Trustees. Do we have a motion to approve by Counselor Leary, second by Counselor Mercia? Discussion on the motion. Roll call.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a communication reappointing William D. Sheehan Jr. to the Council of Aging. Do we have a motion approved by Counselor Mercia, second by Counselor Rourke? Discussion, roll call.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a communication from the city manager requesting out-of-state travel for one person from the Division of Planning and Development. Do we have a motion to approve by Counselor Rourke, seconded by Counselor Leary? Discussion, roll call.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy. Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a vote to transfer $35,000 to cover the cost of assessment center testing for captains and lieutenants. If there's no objection, we'll waive the full first reading and go to the second reading to transfer $35,000 in funds to cover the cost of assessment center testing for captains and lieutenants. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion approved by Counsel Rourke, seconded by Counsel Samaras. Discussion, roll call.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy. Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, under subcommittee reports, first is the Finance Subcommittee of April 24th, 2017. Counselor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just last evening, the Finance Subcommittee met on the first of several meetings that we will hold to start or begin the process of analyzing the financial impact of the Lowell High School on the tax rate. The administration prepared a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation that I thought was well done, Mr. Manager, as well as follow-up information on residential taxes as they exist in the city. We talked about long-term bonding. We talked about short-term cash flow on the project. Two motions came out of the meeting that we'll bring forward. I suppose I can bring them forward right now, Mr. Mayor. But the first motion was on debt exclusion, that the city manager prepare a memorandum or a report, if you will, on the advantages and disadvantages of a debt exclusion ballot question, as well as provide an explanation on exactly what the process is. I think we can take both of these motions together, Mr. Mayor, unless you want to take them separately.
What is the second motion?
So the second motion is maybe we should take them separately. But the second motion is we want to request the city chief financial officer provide a property valuation estimate on individual properties once the debt comes on the city tax rate in 2018, as well as what the estimated cost would be based upon property valuation and the cost of these projects. So both of those motions were brought forward, are being brought forward to the city council. But if I could, do we want to vote on those now, Mr. Mayor, and then I can just give a recap of
Well, why don't you finish your report and then we'll take up a vote.
So what was of interest, and there is a PowerPoint presentation, Mr. Manager, is it online for folks if they want to see it, or maybe sometime in the future that we can? But what was brought forward was the number of single-family homes, and we have had this information before, and we specifically focused on the residential homes. But what was of interest to me was that the number of families that, I mean, we're all going to bear the burden of this, but to me, 95% of the homes in the city are going to share the largest expense, in my opinion. So there are 10,000, the homes that are valued between 250 and 450,000, there are 14,774 homes. That's 95% of the homes in the city. Depending upon the valuation, there will be a tax increase between $266 and $515, depending upon the option. And to me, that is significant, and that's why we're bringing it forward. That range of 266 to 515 includes all the options. So I think that's first and foremost one of the most important aspects to keep in mind. The second item that we asked the city manager or the chief financial officer to bring forward was a 5-year analysis of tax increases over the last 5 years. In 2013, there was no tax increase. In 2014, there was a 16-cent increase, and then 2007, the 2015 at 118, and 2016, and then in 2017, that's $189 increase, which is essentially a $100 increase over the 5-year period, if you average it out. So the point is, the cost of the high school will be borne by the taxpayers, in addition to general operating expenses on top of that. And I think it's important that we shed this light on the impact thus far. Next week, we're going to look at the impact on the commercial tax rate. Following week, we're going to look at the debt service, the debt structure, and the impact that it has, certainly on the budget, but also on other capital projects in the city. And I think those are the only, at this point, those are the meetings that we have held. So, yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is it's a report of progress for the public on the impact of the current project. I mean, I personally think that, you know, I've supported this project right from the get-go, from the time of supporting a feasibility study. And the expectations at that point in time was that the project was going to be a $250 million project. I know I can speak for all my colleagues. I'm certainly going to speak for myself that from $250 million to current projections up to $344 million is a staggering number. To some degree, it feels like we get on this train and it's a runaway train, and there doesn't seem to be an end in sight. And I think that's important as we move forward. That to some degree, I don't know how we can sustain this cost, looking at the cost of our annual costs, and then on top of this. And if you look at the almost 15,000 homes, how are they going to be able to afford this? So that's my opinion, that it's just the effort to bring it forward. I think, you know, we were all on board when it was 250 being a maximum amount just over a year ago, and then with the flip of a switch, we're looking at bearing another $100 million to $150 million. You know, what can be done? Certainly, I think we'll need to scale the project back, in my opinion. I think we've been focused on location and so many other issues, and now when we start to look at the impact that we've, you know, to me, we've got to take a second look and say, how is this affordable? How can we minimize the impact? I know motions have been brought forward on a longer-term lending. I know that we're looking into the SBA and that, but we're getting to the point where it's significant that we have to look into how we can afford this, how it can be structured, what the funding issue is on it, and quite frankly, what is it that we can afford. I firmly believe we've got our financial house in order, and we've done that over the course of the last decade. We've got our costs under control, whether it's pension liability, healthcare costs, you know, we're paving our streets. We got out from underneath the arena, that liability. And we are at a crossroads, and we all understand the high school is in poor condition. Roofs are leaking, HVAC doesn't work, deficiencies in our antiquated science labs. I don't want to belabor the issue.
So, Counselor,
But at this point, I'll wrap it up.
Back to the report.
Yeah, I'm going back to the
Want to
point.
make two motions?
So I just firmly feel that we'll continue to, we'll continue at the request of this council, continue to move forward on the discussion of this. But at this point, this is the residential, the impact on residential homes, and then we can proceed with those two motions. Mr. Mayor, yes. Thank you.
Okay, so the first motion is to request that the city manager provide the city council with a report on debt exclusion and the schedule for debt exclusion and just how that would work. Is that correct?
So the next meeting will be on the commercial, yes, correct. That's correct, Mr.
That's,
Mayor.
okay.
Yep.
Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Council Leary. Discussion on that motion? Council Leary.
Just real quick, I think it's something that, Mayor, you had brought up a long time ago, and we've had another motion on the floor to discuss it. So I'd like to get the information, but I also really want a recommendation, because at the end of the day, is it a positive thing for us to go down that pathway? Is it advantageous to move the tax structure around using debt exclusion, or is it just not advantageous? And I think that's really where you show the pros and the cons, but unfortunately, really, we need a recommendation as well. I think Councilor Elliott articulated the expense. I mean, ultimately, if we had done this 10, 15 years ago, it would have been $150 million. Right now, we're actually, from a physical structure, the only part in your accreditation that was challenging was the physical structure. I'm not going to belabor the point. If we wait and get out of the loop on this one, you wait another 10, 15 years, maybe it's 800 million, maybe it's $1 billion. So unfortunately, now's the time. So the question is, how do you do this in the most productive way for the taxpayer? I know Somerville did it with the debt exclusion. The way they did it ultimately is they middle-loaded the cost, so some of the older taxpayers who had homes would make choices to stay there 5, 10 years and leave. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'd like to get some additional information to see if that's a good fit for us. It appeared to be, at least from the voters in Somerville, a very positive thing for them. Again, let's look at the pros and cons. We have some time before all this is done in terms of cost. How does that impact, or is it not an impact that we want to go down? Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion? All opposed? The motion passes. Councilor Elliott, the second motion?
Second motion, Mr. Mayor, was to request the Chief Financial Officer provide a property valuation and estimated property valuation and estimated tax bills once the project and debt is complete and it goes online in 3 years.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion? Councilor Leary, discussion on that motion. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. If that concludes your report, then the chair would entertain a motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Belanger. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next is the Downtown Redevelopment Subcommittee report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Downtown Redevelopment Subcommittee met this evening at 5:30 to actually take up your motion, Mayor Kennedy, regarding the Lowell House proposal to add residential units in the downtown. We had in attendance members of the subcommittee, myself, Councilor Leahy, and Councilor Rourke, along with just about every other member of the City Council. We had a very good presentation tonight by the partners, and this is truly a partnership approach to dealing with this issue of providing sober apartments to the residents. We had Bill Gard, the director of Lowell House. We had young Drew Choi, the executive director of the Coalition for Better Acre, Greg Thomas from the Coalition for Better Acre, as well as, I believe her name is Sharon Berry, who's the director of residential programs for Lowell House. As we all know, this project development proposal has been talked about for well over a year here in the city, and as I mentioned, Mayor Kennedy decided to really kind of bring this discussion to a head, and when this was referred to the Downtown Redevelopment Subcommittee. And the city manager's office has been working diligently, in my opinion, with the Coalition for Better Acre, with Lowell House, with the Lowell Community Health Center, to really try to come up with a plan. The original plan did call for housing at their current location of 555 Merrimack Street, along with a clinic. I'll have clinical services there. It was the city manager's hope that they could come up with an alternative approach, and they reported to us tonight that they have reached an agreement with the Lowell Community Health Center. I believe that the representatives are still here this evening, and I do think it's a win-win not only for Lowell House and for Coalition for Better Acre, but for the city as well. As I mentioned, it's a true partnership between the coalition, between Lowell House, the city, and the Lowell Community Health Center. We did, after much discussion, a lot of good questions from my colleagues, and like I said, the presentation was very informative, and they did inform us that they have reached an agreement to move the clinical services over to Jackson Street. They're still negotiating the final details of a 60-year lease. To do that, they've been out raising money to do the tenant fit-up, which is going to be at a cost of around $900,000, and they're about halfway toward that goal. They will be working with the coalition. The coalition will sign a letter of intent to buy their property at 555 Merrimack Street, and then do what they do best and build housing at the site, looking to do 23 to 28 units of one to two bedroom units of sober housing, sober apartments. And as the city manager mentioned, they're going to be putting commercial space on the first floor. So we did, after many questions and the presentation, which again was very well done, the subcommittee, on a motion by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Leahy, voted to recommend to the full council to support the partnership proposal, as I'll call it, to support the project going forward. So I would actually bring that forward as from the subcommittee as a motion to the full council.
Okay, so we have a motion to that effect, seconded by Councilor Rourke. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to admit, I was one of the skeptics with the previous proposal, but I think the fact that these are separated, and listening to the presentation tonight by Mr. Gar and Ms. Dunford, is that right?
Barbara
Barbara.
Dunsford.
Corey, you're right. I'm convinced that it's a good project. I think that my only question is, we talked about substance abuse, and I know the Lowell House is primarily alcohol related. Will there be recovering addicts, heroin addicts, as part of this or not? Yes. I'm not sure. We're on television. I mean, can somebody? I should have asked this in the subcommittee meeting. My question is, I know that at the Lowell House, is there counseling for heroin addicts and alcoholic? Can you come to the podium, please?
Yes, covering all addiction services. That means alcohol as well as opioids.
Okay, great.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you. That answers my question. And knowing that counseling is moving over to Jackson, and they're in the process of negotiating a deal, I think that makes sense. And we do have challenges in the community, and we have to do our job. The Lowell House has done phenomenal work. We learned there were 2 sober houses in the city, and I think that's good that there's no problem. They're well run. There's going to be oversight in this project with a full-time case manager. I think it helps, and I also want to thank the explanation on the process, and that the people that will be living in these apartments are, they've gone through a long recovery process, and they're essentially self-sustaining. So I'm going to support the project, and I thank you for the information and the work that has gone into it to make it a successful project and help and serve our community. Thank you.
Council Belanger, then Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, too, was initially skeptical with the project, but working closely with Bill Gar and his commitment to this council. And what I want to commend Mr. Gar and his staff for, number one, bringing it to the city council and starting here, where the city council will have nothing to do with this approval process, okay? We'll go to land use boards and regulatory boards, but this council has no purview over this project whatsoever. But Mr. Gard thought it was very important that if we didn't get the support of the city council, then this thing was DOA, then he would look at it as not too well received from the community. So, Bill, thank you for bringing it forward, and apparently you do have unanimous support from the city council. So I want to commend him for that. And what his organization has done in the last 40-some-odd years in the city, and most recently in the last 5 to 10 with the recent opioid and heroin crisis, where we're making great strides. I'm going to give a subcommittee report momentarily, Mr. Mayor. But without the services of the Lowell House, we would not be making the gains we're making to this day. And I think the council is going to be very pleased to the strides we're making. But without Lowell House, that would not be possible. So I appreciate the services that they offer to our city residents as well. I want to thank them for that. But this is a unique project to the area, and you know, I have had experience in the past with either locating or relocating treatment facilities. As prior to getting elected, we relocated the methadone clinic that was in Hall Street on the Chelmsford-Lowell line on Sedgman Street. It was a very high-profile petition, very contentious. And what I did notice at the time, where clients unfairly were stigmatized. Okay, now the city has many campaigns on erasing stigma. We're making great strides in that regard as well, but unfortunately it still exists. But when you put substance abuse, those who suffer from addiction in a treatment facility, now clients have the privacy they deserve. Okay, they're walking into a medical facility, no one knows, no one can label these people by hanging out in front of a facility and stigmatize them. That's going to end, and it should end. So I think that's great for the sake of the clients. They can focus on recovery in a private setting that's more conducive to recovery, in my opinion, much more conducive. So I'm very pleased with the end result here, and I commend all those of the Lowell House staff, and I support the project wholeheartedly, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Personally, I was never skeptical of this project from day one in the original form. There's a need in this city for a service that they're going to provide. And the reason I wasn't skeptical is because they didn't just come into the city like 3 years ago and propose this plan. They were here in the city for 46 years. They were in their present location for 35. So they have a track record of doing the right thing. I know, I've been here that long myself, but not only that, they're gonna tear down that building and put it up to the beauty of the surrounding areas, buildings. I think it's a gateway into the city. It's gonna improve the acre immensely, providing a service that we have. I wish we didn't need this service, but we actually do, and they're gonna do that. And there's a great partnership with the Coalition for a Better Acre, who has proven themselves as well. Look at the facility they built on Gorham Street. They have a veterans facility for recovering drug addicts who have post-traumatic stress disorder, all kind of problems, and they have that facility and that housing for them, those veterans in Haverhill. I just wish their next plan would be to do that in Lowell for our veterans as well. So I commend them. They could have been discouraged by hearing all the talk that we didn't want this, we didn't want that, but they forged onward, and they're going to have the facility, after all, put the clinical aspect to the Lowell Community Health Center on Jackson Street. I'm very proud of them. We can promote and say the good things about Megan House. I think we should say the same about them. A lot of their funding is coming through raising money. Not an easy thing to do. They're providing a valuable service. We need this in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Samaras, then Councilor.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. No, in the previous meeting, in the subcommittee meeting, I did thank the people of the CBA and Lowell House for simple reason of recognizing that they had to deal with the problem. They have a problem, their clients have issues that they have to deal with, and the first plan came out, was a worthwhile plan, but it also, we'll say, became problematic in the sense that we're looking to economically develop that area of the city to give people in that area an opportunity for jobs and education. And I think this is in a sense of what you might call good government in action. Because as a board, some of us were ready to immediately accept what they had to offer, but others questioned it and said, Can you do more? Can you help us? Especially in the area of economic development, because we want to see that happen. So what we found is, through their good work, what they're gonna do, what they've stated, they're gonna move the health center, the counseling center to the community health center. That's a wonderful partnership. That's a partnership that works. Now, the housing that they will have, I mean, will just enhance that neighborhood. But they are gonna have the entire first floor for commercial development. That's gonna give people who may live in the building opportunities for jobs. That's gonna give many people in the area opportunities for jobs. This is what we have to do. If we're gonna solve problems, we just can't think of the one way of solving problems. If there's a problem, create a helping house, a halfway house, or whatever. That does solve a problem, but doesn't solve the problem for the community. This is an example of an effort of two groups working together to solve a problem and to come out with actually a pretty good answer. So I'm pleased with what they did. It shows that down the road, that if we have some issues come up and we find a problem with it, if we handle it in the right way, it becomes a win-win situation for everybody. And this is a true example, to me, of a win-win situation. So again, I commended them before, and I want to commend them now. And I'll commend the council for, trying to help set a direction, and city manager for working with that group to see this happen, because I know the city manager and his people did a lot of work behind the scenes to help bring this together. But that's what we have to do. If we're going to be successful, we have to work together, and that's an example of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll support the motion that was brought forward from the subcommittee today. But I'd like to say that I would have supported the first time it came around. And in fact, the first proposal, I think, is much better than the one that we're here in front of us tonight. You put an extra burden on the clients, the people that need help, by sending them, off-site. You put an extra burden on the Lowell House to provide that service. And there's a lot of talk last time we were here, about, those people and, and economic development and this and that. The CBA pays taxes on everything, and so for what? A convenience store and a coffee shop, this is okay now? When, before you could have had a place where it would have been brand new and everything would have been, that it needed would have been in one location. But again, I'll support this because it'd be unanimous. But, let's not forget the reason why we're doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council Milonazo.
Could I request a roll call on the motion?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott. 8 yeas.
Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Council Milonazo, second by Council Rourke. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, under
Yeah.
petition, Council Rourke.
May I just schedule a subcommittee meeting, please? Monday, May 1st, we're going to have a joint flood committee and neighborhood services subcommittee at the Wang School, 7 p.m. Notify my colleagues on both subcommittees. It'll be Monday, May 1st, 7 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be brief. Now that we're on the topic of substance abuse, the City Substance Abuse Task Force met last evening at 5:30 in the mayor's reception room. And I'd like to share with my colleagues the most recent data that has come out with this, with the city of Lowell battling the crisis. And there's some very positive news in one sense, where we evaluated the statistics for the first quarter of 2017 from January 1 to March 31 and how it compared to previous years. So, for example, opiate-related deaths, overdoses, in 2016, we had the first quarter, 25 to date, on March 31. I have great news to report that that number has decreased significantly in 2017, where the first quarter we are down to 10.
Council, before you go on, this isn't on the agenda, so we'll do it, but as long as there's no objection by anybody on the council, so there isn't, so go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, I'm sorry, but, so we are down in fatal overdoses, long story short, Mr. Mayor, to my colleagues, 60% margin, so that is tremendous. That is in a large part due to the co-op program That is a full-time police officer, full-time fireman, and 2 caseworkers from, yes, the Lowell house that we just talked about, that are advocating out and responding to non-fatal overdoses. So, but on the flip side, drug usage has increased about 14%. We are responding to more overdoses. That has gone up 14%. So I just want to give those numbers to my colleagues and share them with the public, that in all this conversation with the high school, you know, it's the topic in the coffee shops and the supermarkets, as well as should be. But we still have a drug problem in the city, and we still have a lot of work to do. So I wanted to share those statistics, that the goal of the task force and to this council is to save lives, and we're doing that. But nonetheless, drug usage is still slightly on the rise, and we have a lot of work to do, Mr. Mayor. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Next, under petitions, we have one property claim. The chair will entertain a motion to refer to the law department for report and recommendation by Council Belanger, second by Council Leahy. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. All right, next we have items 6.2 through 6.6, which are all national grid requests that have to be referred to a public hearing. Item 6.3 is being withdrawn, so we've got 4 left, 6.2, 6.4, 6.5, and 6.6. If there's no objection, the chair would bundle all of those and just do a short first reading and refer them to the hearing, no objection. The first one, 6.2, is request the installation of a joint-owned wood pole and anchor on Gorham Street. 6.4 is requesting installation of an underground conduit on Thorndike Street. 6.5 is requesting installation of a joint-owned wood pole and anchor on Viola Street. And 6.6 is a request to install a joint-owned wood poles and anchors to accommodate the Market Street Bridge reconstruction. Chair will entertain a motion to refer all those matters to public hearings on May 16, 2017 at 7 p.m. by Council Leahy, second by Council Leary. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? So voted. Council Leahy.
Thank you. Is it possible, so when this goes to public hearing, we'll have someone here from Verizon and National Grid, most likely, right?
They'll be notified.
They'll be known. Could we just ask them, we were asking Verizon specifically about Viola Street. Can they make sure they have an answer for us about the double poles over there? Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to council motions. The first motion is by Council Leahy, requesting the city manager have the Department of Public Works inspect Buckman Road from Hovey Street to Rogers Street for the purpose of cleanup of the road and sidewalks, including trimming back of any trees that may be needed. Second by Council Leary. Council Leahy.
Thank you. So this came about by a couple of residents on the street. It's not all that bad, but there's certain sections through you to the manager that could use say a scraping. The trees aren't really as overgrown as they used to be, but up at by the Hovey Street, about certain sections in the middle, and then maybe just at the end, there's some places where it could be, the dirt could be scraped off the street to make it a little wider and just clean it up. So if they could take a look at it and see what we could do. It'd make it safer, obviously, for the kids walking to and from school, traffic flow and all that. Just make it a lot safer for the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Council Leahy. Requested the city manager provide the city council with a street paving plan for major roads throughout the city, including the downtown area. Second by Council Leary. Council Leahy.
Thank you. Through you, the manager. Just to get a jump on this, I know we always have the paving list, but some of the main streets, and I know we're going to work on Merrimack and Central and all that, but some of the main roads coming into the city and then the city streets in the downtown area are starting to get dips and bumps and all that. So just to start that ball rolling. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion of the evening is by Council Leahy. Requested the city manager provide an update regarding the construction at the Broadway Street Bridge. Second by Council Leary. Council Leahy.
Thank you. This motion speaks for itself. Just, we're all frustrated with this, so just to see where we are and what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on this motion? All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Councilor Mercier. Request that the city manager work with the Vulgaropolis family to erect an appropriate signage on the Vulgaropolis Bridge. Second by Council Milonazo. Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, the Vergaropolis Bridge was once called the highest bridge. Those of us that are over the hills, I don't mean you, Mr. Manager, we kind of remember that. And when it was straightened out, they put the sign back, and appropriately so, but it's not to the likelihood that it was when it first went out there. I just want to tell you about the Vergaropolises. It's named after two brothers, but if you saw that sign, you would know that. So the relatives are asking through this council to support that instead of saying Vergaropolis Square, if we could say James C. Vergaropolis and John C. Vergaropolis. They both died in the line of service. John C. Vergaropolis died on February 24th, 1946 in Germany while in the service of our country. And his brother died 2 years later in 1949 in the line of service to this country. So we have James C. Vergaropolis and John C. Vergaropolis. James died in 1944 in the China-Burma India Theater, and John C. died in 1946 in Germany. Two brothers died fighting for this country, and I think all their family is asking for, which is one of the things on their bucket list. How could you not help someone that is asking that? So I have been speaking as well to John Cooper, the sign shop guru, who informs me that that's a state road. That sign was put up there by the state. So he conferred with the state, and they will put the signs up relatively soon. And I did see a picture of it, but the family said that they forgot to ask for the gold star. There should be 2 gold stars on it as well. They're not there, so it should have the 2 first names, John C. and James C., with 2 gold stars, indicating that they died in the line of service. That's all these family members want, and I don't know how we could not honor that. And John Cooper has been working diligently to make this happen, but they're coming without the stars, and I think we're almost there, but I just really wish that we could do it perfect. Thank you so much. That's important.
Any further thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? All opposed? So voted. Councilor Mercer, you have a motion that you filed
Thank you.
on the deadline, which, so it didn't appear on the agenda, but if there's no objection,
We'll just
by
suspend the
general
rules.
consent, we'll suspend the rules, and the motion is request that the City Council, by way of resolution, support condemning any human rights violations happening in Cameroon.
Thank you,
Written by
Mr.
Councilor Leary.
I'm
Councilor
sorry.
Mercia.
Thank you so much. From time to time, we have had the opportunity to adopt places all over the world and designate them as our sister city. We just did that some time ago with the city of Bamenda in Cameroon. Many years ago, we did that. We also had the pleasure, not once but twice, to welcome and pay tribute to their king, King Agualfo, who visited us for the first time when I was mayor, and then the second time when Bill Martin was mayor. Things are not so peaceful in Cameroon. In November of last year, a bloody political crisis erupted, resulting in death, rape, and mass persecution of nonviolent citizens in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon. Lowell has the largest concentration of Americans of Cameroon origin, and for the fact that we are a sister city, our Cameroonians have expressed interest that we form a resolution condemning the human rights violation on English Cameroonians. This motion is to have City Council support. Send this motion to ask the Law Department to put together a resolution to come back to the City Council for a vote next week, May 2nd, and present it to the Cameroonian residents to present to their government. So I think that if we could support that, that would be a good gesture to the people that have supported this city for many, many years. So
Is there any
that's
further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. Next is a motion by Council Milonazo, request that the city manager report on the business tax now being assessed to artists at Weston Avenue Studios. Second by the chair. Council Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand that probably not only the artists at Weston Avenue Studios, but maybe other artists throughout the city are being assessed a business tax. Again, I bought art at Weston Avenue Studios and I've paid a sales tax, but I understand now there's a business tax that's being assessed. So I'd like a report from the administration as to what impact that's having on the artists. I understand that the Susan LeMay, our city assessor, did indicate that she's willing to work with any of the artists that have a problem with the tax and provide them some relief, and I don't know what that would be. But if you could include that in your report, that would be helpful. And I'm just also looking to make sure that the business tax is being applied fairly. I'm not questioning it. I'm sure it probably is. But if there are other artists in other locations, are they also being charged a business tax? Or artists who are working out of their homes being charged a business tax and so forth? So again, I just like a report from the administration as to what impact that's having on what I would consider to be a struggling artist community here in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very interesting motion, I think, and a very good one. Now, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager, or maybe even the maker of the motion, now, is this more or less a business tax on personal property? Mr. Mayor, that's happening here, putting a strain on, I guess, if you will, artists, yeah?
Well, it's yeah, thank you. It's a personal property tax. Most, small businesses pay it. For example,
Yes.
my law office would pay on the computers, the furniture, and things like that. So it's a personal property
Restaurant
tax.
equipment and so forth.
Restaurant
yes,
equipment.
yeah,
So now they've started, it won't start till fiscal year 2018. But what they're doing is they're taxing the personal property of the artist, not the finished product. The finished product is artwork that isn't taxed, but the canvas before you put paint on it or things like that, that's personal property that's being taxed.
Okay, well, I'm curious to see how this plays out, so I look forward to the motion response, and I intend on supporting the motion. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, I think this is a slippery slope. I mean, these are small businesses, and perhaps it's an eligible activity, and we can do this, but is there any requirement that we do it? And I agree, it's got to be fair across the board, but and we've heard, we've all heard complaints. I certainly have. I mean, there's a place close by. There's a personal property tax on an iron, and some real small items where, to the small business owner, at what point do we start taxing them? We have one of the highest commercial tax rates, and we don't want to scare people out of the city. So is there a threshold in the statute on certain items, a dollar amount, where we don't tax them? I mean, we want to help. We want to help the businesses, and it just seems, when I did hear the report over WBC, it just didn't make. Yeah, it was on WBC that
It was in the Boston Globe,
in the
too. I
Globe
read
as
the
well.
article in the Globe.
I think the point is we want to encourage artists to come here. We don't want to try to tax them to death by any stretch. So,
No, I know what you're saying, and one of the things in the article, it talked about Belmont and Cambridge and Boston have set a threshold of $10,000. It is exempt, and you'll only tax over $10,000. So one of the things I'm going to talk to Sue LeMay about is, can we set a threshold that then they have to pay a tax after a certain amount of personal property?
okay, I think that makes some sense, and everybody's paying their fair share. But at what point do we want to, do we want to help? Do we want to encourage to say, look, we understand what the law is, but we're going to set a threshold that we're not going to tax on some small items, in my opinion. I mean, even computers, or printers, or furniture. I mean, I understand it's personal property, and everybody has to pay their fair share, but we also want to encourage, small businesses, especially where, I don't know how many studios, artists we have in the community, but it's significant. It's a big part of the economy, and we want to continue to strengthen it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion by Council Milonazo? All in favor of the motion, all opposed? So
Just real quick,
Councilor
just to
Lear.
follow up, because you're talking about small businesses, say somebody is working out of their house with a laptop and a telephone, the same, that would apply as well, correct? In terms of looking at a threshold, because you have some folks, I mean, you know what I'm going with it ultimately, you got some people are being taxed when they have a laptop, and they have a cell phone, and they work mostly out of the airport, but technically, they're a home business, so that's the same thing, no? I mean,
Well, they're also violating the zoning laws. But,
not if,
you know,
well,
we.
but I mean,
it's-
but you're
yeah.
you're taxing them,
Oh,
right?
well, right, exactly.
Okay.
It is, I mean, it is a difficult endeavor, but I'm gonna talk to Sue and we'll come up with
Okay, good.
what
No, I
is
appreciate that.
appropriate and a fair plan for everyone.
All right, thank you.
On the motion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Council Samaras. Request that the city manager of the Division of Planning and Development prepare a plan that would create a student zone, a university district that is student-friendly. Second by
Thank you.
Council Rook. Council Samaras.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. No, we often refer to Lowell as a college town. Some people would prefer to call it a city of the arts, a city for innovation. But Lowell certainly will not be an Amherst. An Amherst is a true college town. And I think it's very difficult for any city to be that. And what I've found in some of my research is that many of the cities that have large universities or colleges within them are asking the cities to create school zones, or basically a student-friendly area, an area that's been rezoned to handle types of businesses where college students would be more likely to attend. And I think this is something that would require some collaboration with your office, Department of Planning and Development, the University of Middlesex Community College, to perhaps identify some areas in the city of Lowell that we could say is a student zone area. For example, this area between the Smith-Baker Center and the university, this corridor right here could perhaps make an ideal school zone, and that our Department of Planning and Development could work with the various businesses and zoning to look at how could we bring in those type of businesses that will bring the students from the college into this area. I think we know that the university has done a lot of research as to what students would look for in a business, but perhaps we could develop work with our relationship with the university to create an atmosphere for success. And this atmosphere of success would be to identify these are the type of businesses that we're looking for. This is something the Department of Planning and Development could work with the college to handle. And I think this could encourage people to come into the area, knowing that if they pick out a particular area, this is an area that the university has agreed on to try to get its students to, go into that area for their rest and relaxation. It's, Lowell will never be a college town, but I think we could certainly have a college area, much like we have the Hamilton Canal area as an innovation district. So I'm just asking, Mr. Manager, that you allow the Department of Planning and Development to work with the university to look into this type of an approach to encouraging college students, the some 20,000 college students that are in this area, to come into Lowell to shop and to have some fun, and simply stated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Council Belanger. Request that the city manager of the proper department evaluate speeding on Draper Street and Arbor Road and take any appropriate action to address the issue. Seconded by Councilor Elliott. Council Belanger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's myself and all my colleagues that are receiving a lot of complaints as of late on speeding in neighborhoods that are very, very much residential. And with the school obviously being the hot topic, I have spoken to many constituents, both on Arbor and Draper, as early as this weekend, that, they are concerned about the speeding that, with the school there, that going up, whether it's parents, teachers, I don't know. I don't want to say, I don't have the facts, but nonetheless, it seems to be very prevalent. Backing out of their driveway is becoming more and more dangerous by the day, according to some of these residents. So if we can have the traffic engineer maybe take a look at these two streets, we may have to perhaps slow things down a bit as well, like we're doing on East Merrimack Street. It's becoming a bit much for some of these residents, so I think it ought to be looked at. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is also by Counselor Belanger, request the city manager provide a report from the Cultural Affairs Special Events outlining upcoming special events in 2017. Seconded by Counselor Mercy. Counselor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just want to see what else Festival City USA has on tap for the remaining of 2017. We've kicked it off. We had a successful Winterfest. We just had a very successful lantern lighting, and as we know, the good weather is coming. So as I've expressed time and time again to the manager, we want more special events. It's that simple. So I want to see what Case has lined up for us. I know Toby Marks, a new addition to the city, is doing a tremendous job. He's a very talented individual and bringing a lot of good things to the table. So I'd like to see the complete lineup that we have on tap for 2017, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Counselor Leary. Request the city manager invite the Markley Group and Verizon to the Technology and Utilities Subcommittee in order to discuss commercial and residential high-speed internet connectivity options. Second by Counselor Leahy.
Just real quick, this is actually from the city manager, actually, speaking with Markley Group, and really our discussions with Verizon and the ongoing negotiations with Verizon. This is an area where they may actually be an asset to the commercial side, and we want to open up a dialogue and invite both parties into the Technology Utilities Subcommittee. So I think it's exciting because with a lot of the development with the infrastructure that we spoke about earlier in terms of the Innovation District coming in, this is key for us going forward. So I want to thank the manager for it, but I think I want to formally bring them in to the subcommittee to actually talk where those, those potential opportunities are with the Markley Group, and then Verizon really solidify where are we with negotiations and what can we do with them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion on the motion? Counselor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Manager, is there any effort underway to develop an app? I know the city of Boston has an app where you can pay for your meter through your phone. I mean, it's only good for 2 hours. That's.
I think that's coming up later on in the agenda.
Oh, sorry. That's it.
Okay.
I'm off.
All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion of the evening is by Counselor Leary. Request the city manager report on the status regarding the neglected home located at 151 Wedge Street. Seconded by Counselor Leahy. Counselor Leary.
So it's a typo, it's actually 51, so the folks at 151, good job. It's obviously, that there's the whole, it's starting to fall apart. You've taken pictures of it, so it speaks for itself. The neighborhood would really be appreciative of anything we can do to make that, resolve that really ongoing, never-ending issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further Counselor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could segue and add something into it similar to that, could I do that?
Maybe.
Maybe?
Give it a shot.
Because speaking about a neglected home, there is a vacant lot that would knock your socks off. You will never believe. You know what I'm talking about.
I went there yesterday, I couldn't believe it. But there is a reason that those mattresses are over because UTEC is gonna be picking up all the mattresses for the recycling program. That's why all the mattresses are over the fence, but it's the worst lot I've ever seen.
So I don't have to give you this
Nope,
piece of
we're
paper.
already working on it.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right. Counselor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While we're in the Highlands, Mr. Manager, I think it's the old big yellow house on the corner of Stevens and West Albert. It was an old ice cream shop or something like that. That's been that way for a long, long time. Any update on that?
We have looked at that. We've looked at that a number of times. I know Mr. Fallon was always part of. Yeah, Mrs. Fallon always on it. I walk by it every morning. It looks deplorable, but they are operating a business out of the back of it, so they do get some protections. But I'll have an update on it from Development Services and what they're doing.
Clean up a little bit in the front?
Pardon me?
Just to clean up a little bit?
Oh yeah, it's boarded up. It looks terrible, but I'll get an update on it.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion on this motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Counselor Leary. Request the city manager review the feasibility of creating an application in order to determine the availability of parking spaces within the city-owned parking garages and public parking on the street. Seconded by Counselor Leahy. Counselor Leary.
Just quick, it's kind of a follow-up to what we had, our last meeting ultimately regarding looking for opportunities. This is an area I thought in the presentation, this is an area we weren't going in, but I think the technology's there, so we should start looking into it. And I think, I don't know, Council Elliott is something, we're talking about something that happens in Boston right now that's similar to it. I don't know much about it, but I think it's a good idea to start looking into it. I know the technology exists, and it's something where folks are looking for parking. Right now, we have the shortage of parking. It makes a lot of sense to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Elliott.
All the right time. No, the city of Boston does have one for their meters, and it's zones, and you can pay for it. I mean, you can't park there all day, and you're limited. And I think it, may make some sense. I don't know if we could do it through our kiosks here, and it is internet-based, and it's through a phone. It's
No, I've read about it. It's in Seattle also. You can find, but there are apps where you can actually reserve a parking spot in one of your garages. You can't reserve the on-street parking spaces, but you can at least find the availability. So Nick
Right.
Navin is looking into that
yeah,
technology.
it's the same thing with the MBTA. I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
bad things about the MBTA, but you can reserve your parking spot and pay for it in advance to the phone rather than having someone collect the ticket. So I think it's a good motion. Thank you.
Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I'm going to support the motion, but the focus, I mean, it's my understanding, and I could be wrong, that the software is rather expensive, and the revenue is 25 cents per 12 minutes. Now, I guess over time, it can pay for itself, but we got to change the culture. There is an abundance of parking in the garages. But no one wants to use them. I've said this time and time again. Okay, that is premium parking on the street. We should be charging a premium price while subsidizing, if you're using that to sort of subsidize garage rates. That nobody's going into them. There's nights and weekends. There's plenty of room in those garages. There is plenty of parking in downtown Lowell, but it's in the garages and no one wants to use them. And until we start changing that mentality and culture, we're always going to be talking about this. So take this from experience. I was a downtown businessman for 15 years. I think I know the mindset of some of those clients down there, with all due respect. So we've got to create better usage, more convenient, to get people, owners, staff in garages, okay, to open up street spots and change the culture, as I said time and time again. But I think it's well worth looking into, and I intend on supporting Councilor Leary's motion, but I sound like a broken record, I know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on Councilor Leary?
Just real quick, I appreciate you're going to support the motion. The point is to get up with technology. I mean, folks, this is how folks do business. I've been going downtown for 25 years, and frankly, this would be an asset to me. This would be an area you can make easy planning. If I'm going to go in a certain restaurant in a certain area downtown and it's a day like today, it'd be good to know I can use this garage, or I can't. So I think it's just basically using the modern technology. Other areas are doing it. Let's just become cutting edge. As far as open parking, obviously, this is a convenience. This is what people want. And I think the thing we need to do at this point is start looking at what does the customer want with expendable income? Because that's how you're going to draw people into your downtown or wherever you want to draw them at the end of the day. Who has the income? How do you get them down there? And this is just one more quiver in your armor, as it were, to bring them in. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Councilor Elliott.
Mr. Manager, is there any way for us to identify whether the garages are full or they're not full at particular hours of the day?
I think, Councilor, not to do it again, but I think a couple of weeks ago, we had a motion to ask the city manager for utilization for those garages, so that report should be coming, which is a good idea.
Yeah.
But I think we should be getting that, right?
I think it was referred to a subcommittee for us to
Okay.
make a presentation, because we do have all of that information.
You do.
Okay.
We had the stat report on it,
Okay.
and I brought that up, and I think I'll check on it and make sure, but I think it was referred to a subcommittee for a full hearing on it one evening, so I'll check on it and follow up on it.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Councilor Rourke. Have requested city manager have inspectional services provide a report updating the repairs being done on properties at 138 and 200 Cross Street. Second by Councilor Milonazo, Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion basically speaks for itself. I know the property at 200, Mr. Manager, the top of it is really in terrible shape, and a couple of the residents were curious if, they're in danger of that stuff falling off the roof. So just any update would be great. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion by Councilor Rourke requests the city manager review procedures of the Board of Parks for implementation and on waiver of fees and use of fields for local groups. Seconded by Council Mercy. Council Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I filed this motion after speaking to you, Mr. Manager, and I was I coach obviously a football league in the city that's free of charge to kids, and I went for permits just for practice fields. We were given a bill for over $5,000 afterwards, and that was new. We've done it years before, and there's always never been a charge for practice fields. Fully understanding that when you open the gates of Collie and you go play there, you should justly be charged for that. And the other thing that caught my eye that night too was Papawana was also there, and they basically practice the same time, the same dates as we do. They're on one field next to us, and they would charge the same amount of money as well. So just, my feeling personally is, if you're a local Lowell group, that you're trying to help kids and to keep them busy after school in the summertime, I would hope that the fees would be waived as they have been for the past 15 years. And then if you had a regional group or something like that, then charge them 10 grand if you like. But I understand as far as the Lowell youth groups, I would hope that there's a process in place that we wouldn't be, groups would not be charged fees for, again, everybody that's involved. It's not a non-paying thing. It's just a volunteer in their time. And again, we're trying just to keep kids busy. So with that being said, any type of response I think would be helpful for this. I know a couple of groups already, probably 3 or 4, have been charged pretty exorbitant fees already. And I know that Mr. Linehan over at the Board of Parks has held off so far, waiting for direction from the city. So hopefully with this motion, if it does pass, that something can be done to help alleviate such an overwhelming cost, because if these costs are in place, these programs go away. Thank you.
Thank you. Any Council Leahy?
Thank you. When we get the report, can we kind of get a history of what we've been doing over the years and how, what we're trying to accomplish? But again, these are practice fields that should be open to all the kids, and as Council Rourke said, a lot of these, everybody donates their times, and they've paid to schedule games, but I don't think we ever charge for practice times. So if we can have that included in the report also. Thank you.
Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm hearing the same reports all over the place from people, coaches, parents, that are very upset about the fees that were once no fees are now fees, and it's quite expensive. And, this is a city that we like to keep the kids busy. Gee, I hate to put a fee on it and have these games dissolved or practice fields dissolved, disintegrated, and kids turn to something other than sports. I wouldn't want to do that, so I think it would be wise, as Councilor Rourke has this motion, to revisit the fees and see if we can obliterate them for the practice fields, and at least look at them and try to restructure it in another way. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. I think this is a good motion. I'm not sure what the issue is. Is it Collie to the maker of the motion? That's where the fees are being assessed? And the practice fields? Mr. Manager, is there any explanation for this? I mean, if it's because it's a high school field?
No, basically what it is that the fee that that we're going to give the complete report, but the fee that, we're not looking to make money.
Right.
What we're looking for is to pay for the custodians that have to show up to open up the fields and to clean them up, and that. They used to charge for lights too, but I have them waive the lights because I don't think that's fair. But we're going to give a complete report as to how much the fees are and what they go to. As far as the other thing, also, they've now started apportioning the fees. So if you have 2 or 3 different groups at the fields, they'll share the fee that's being paid rather than each one getting a separate fee. But we'll give a complete report as to what they're being charged, what it's for, and then we can make a decision as what we should do to in the future.
Well, I mean, here's a case where you have volunteers, nobody's making any money. It's not like a club league or a private organization. I wholeheartedly support, and I have charging them a fee for using the city fields, because there is maintenance, there is upkeep, but for a nonprofit organization, it's almost unconscionable that they're gonna be able to pay this fee because they're not charging registration fees. And I think we have to support them. Now, even for the practice, I can understand Collie because that's a huge facility, but even the practice fields, does that requires a custodian to go over? Or is there any way that the league can just open and close? I mean, I'm just speaking from my experience, Mr. Manager.
No, I'm getting it, I just briefly talked to Mr. Belgard about this today, and we're gonna I asked him to give me a full report on what the fee is, what it's entitled. We're not trying to make money from
No, I
from
understand
these,
that, Mr. Manager.
but I want to make sure that the fees are fair and reasonable and affordable. So he's going to give us a complete report, and then I'll be able to make some determinations as to what we can do to help out these groups in the future.
Okay. Now, and I'm just speaking from my own experience at the 6 acres of the soccer field. I mean, there were between 2,000 and 3,000 people there. And, the league does the oversight and management with the help of the city. So I can't imagine if we'd have to pay, $5,000, we wouldn't be able to sustain ourselves. So I think that makes sense to get a report and see how we can, benefit this league that, again, doesn't charge even a registration fee. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council Samaras, then Council Leahy, then Council Palacio. Council Samaras.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. No, Mr. Manager, I understand the need for the city to try to develop an income to assist in maintaining these fields. But we're not talking about a clinic. I mean, anybody that wants to, we'll say, start a clinic, some of these clinics come in, they bring people in, children in from the outside, other towns and what have you. And it's a money-making issue. But we're talking about people who are all volunteers having, creating an opportunity for children in the city of Lowell to play. And I think this is one area where, we have to look at other ways of raising that type of revenue, because I think many of these organizations, they barely have enough money that when they raise money to pay for the uniforms and the things that they need to perform their tasks. And I think we're creating a burden for them that I think would stop many, in other words, a lot of these people are very dedicated, but I think if we want to destroy a program, we can do this by having fees that create such a problem where it's just difficult to operate. I think we have to make a difference between, we'll say, a clinic or an organization that comes in with out-of-town students for the idea of some type of training program. But any program that deals with our youth in the city of Lowell, we should maintain that cost. We should do that cost. So I would support going in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Leahy.
With the report too, can we just, so I can understand locking up Collie, but why are we locking up the practice fields and everything? So could we find out why there really shouldn't be any reason to have somebody just to open up practice fields? I understand that it's probably, the high school kind of uses it more than anybody else, but it's still open space, and it's, the football leagues and the lacrosse league. So really, maybe if we, it's time to take the chains off. So, thank you.
Thank you, Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. I know there's been a lot of dialogue, and rightfully so. I appreciate Councilor Rourke bringing this forward. This is, look at, these are parents who are working hard, not only time, but many of them are subsidizing this. They have fundraisers they're paying out of their own pocket in many cases. I've seen it. We've all seen it. And we've got to find a way. We can't be charging they're taking care of these kids from low-income neighborhoods, low-income backgrounds who can't afford it and probably wouldn't be on that field if it wasn't for these organizers. So we've got to find a way. We've talked to Councilor Samaras, we've talked about alternative. We've been talking about sponsorships on fields for a long, long time. And okay, I know we're getting close, but that's another source of revenue. Okay, rather than charging these leagues. No, for practice fields, we have to find an arrangement, sort of what Councilor Elliott alluded to, he has with the soccer fields. We'll stagger employees. I know there's union issues, but it's got to be worked out. We cannot be charging for practice fields. I know there's costs, Mr. Manager, but we've got to find a way. These are our kids who, if they're not in sports, they're going to be doing a lot of other things, and some of them aren't going to be good. So it's very important to them. to us, to everybody, to keep them occupied and on the field playing active sports. So I think that's huge. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Council Rourke. Requested the city manager update the council regarding the Department of Public Works needle pickup program. Seconded by Council Mercy. Council Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this motion came about when somebody had called me about a couple of needles that were at a local area. And I was told that Trinity had to come in and get the needles. So I thought a few months back, Mr. Manager, we were here and there was a program put in place for the DPW to be trained and give them the shops containers with the gloves and so forth. And so, the question I asked was, why are we calling Trinity for? I thought we had this program in place, and come to find that's not in place yet. So just looking for an update of, when it's going to happen. I know that Trinity's busy enough, probably doing medical things like that. But what's stopping our DPW workers from being able to do this? Probably, they're at the parks every day anyways, right? So is there something that's stopping them from being able to, again, whether it's training or equipment or whatnot, I guess, why hasn't that happened yet? Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council Leahy.
Thank you. I just wanted to concur that, whatever, if we have Trinity, or we had this at the neighborhood meetings, say, call Trinity or call the fire department or call the police, but why don't we just train our own guys, give them the equipment while they're out there, they can be part of their day to pick some of this up. So if we could get a report on the pros and cons and what you think will work better, that'd be great. But it seems logical when you look at it that if we trained a few of the guys in the parks and DPW, that they would be able to do this for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The last motion of the evening is a motion that came into the mayor's office. Requested the city manager review possible installation of a sidewalk on Stedman Street in the vicinity of 22 Old Canal Drive. Second by Council Mercy. A discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Council Mercy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If life was perfect, we would not have people on drugs. We would be rid of all diseases, and this world would be a better place. But that will never happen in an imperfect world such as we presently have. Having said that, we do have diseases, and one of them is the disease of addiction. With this disease comes a program that is offering help to bring people back to the condition that they once were in. In an effort to help people, facilities are in place to try to regulate meds, stabilize, monitor, and counsel people. There are 2 such facilities on Old Canal Drive off of Stedman Street that do just that. Let's not forget that Habit Opco was in Lowell long ago at 651 Suffolk Street. Through no fault of their own, they were asked to leave the area for unknown reasons, and their lease was not renewed. I can speculate why, but I won't. When they finally found their proposed new site, there were conditions placed on them. The walking corridor up to the Habit Opco in South Bay has no sidewalks. Thus, the terms of the agreement and the certificate of occupancy was contingent to having a shuttle bus at the end of Stedman Street at Westford Street so that their clients did not walk in the street and get injured. In trying to arrange for the LRTA to send a bus along that route was not an option, as the route would have to be readjusted and would create a burden for people who rely on the bus service to go to work or school, and riders would be late. So that option fell through. The only alternative was for the facilities to get their own private transportation shuttle and pay out of their pockets. The cost is $84,000 to provide this transportation service. This is a much-needed service for this community, which operates from 6 a.m. to 12:15 every day. And I will say, in my personal opinion, that to me this is a barrier that has been placed before them. This is just another obstacle to a service that is much needed in this city. People are overdosing every day in this city at an alarming rate. People are dying from overdoses. The clients of Habit Opco are not these people. Just ask John Kelly from Trinity Ambulance. He will verify what I just said. He has the stats on it. Habit Opco is saving lives, and we as a city are placing barriers instead of doing all we can that the money they spend on shuttling clients can be used to help the 1,400 clients rid the deadly disease of addiction. There was opposition to them coming to Stedman Street, but in the whole 3 years that they were there, they proved that they are good neighbors. My concern is that in an effort to acknowledge that these two facilities are providing a valuable service, that we as a city cooperate by removing that barrier of needing a shuttle bus or put in new sidewalks from Westford Street up to 22 Old Canal Drive. It's just cheaper, in my opinion, to just remove the barriers. Remember that Habit OPCO is dedicated to treating people with dignity and respect and assisting them to obtain a drug-free lifestyle. And I'll give you another clue on this. There are well-to-do, influential people in this city that take their service there. They go in very early so people don't know who they are. There are people that go to Lawrence, to the other Habit OPCO place there, so that people aren't familiar with seeing them. We think that it's a drug addict that's laying in the gutter ready to do an overdose. These aren't the people that are going to Habit OPCO. These are people that rely on this methadone to sustain themselves, to provide a normal life and a normal occupation for themselves. These are family members. These are good people that had once had a problem, but through this methadone, regaining their life back. I think it's a very needed service. We have to get that stigma out that these are bad people. We're going to put up barriers. We're going to stop them from opening up their facilities to treat them. We got to do all we can to help. We just heard from the Lowell house. We hear from Megan's house. We want to help people that are willing to help other people, to provide family members back to the function in families where they came from, and to save lives. And that's what this company is doing. So I think it's very important that we do all we can to lift the barriers of saying, gee, you need a sidewalk. Do you know how much that would cost? It's not a pretty penny. It's a lot of money. If we could take them back to the table and release that barrier and say, walk at your own risk. There's businesses along those corridors. Nobody's stopping people from walking to work up to those businesses. So I think we should revisit this. Haven't they proved themselves in 3 years? I think they have. So if we could revisit it, that's an excellent motion, Mr. Mayor. I don't know who approached you, but when I saw it, I had to speak out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. That concludes the agenda. Are there any announcements? Hearing no announcements, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Samaras. All in favor, all opposed? Stand adjourned.